Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Well. My name's Kate, and today we're going to be thinking about disappointment and reading something from Habakkuk in the Old Testament. Habakkuk was a guy who lived in Israel in the last decades of the Southern Kingdom, and he was really dismayed by what was going on around him. And in chapters 1 and 2 of Habakkuk, we see him telling God really honestly, "What's up? Why aren't you listening to me? What on earth is going on?" He sees injustice, he sees the poor being oppressed, the rule of law being laid aside, and he's distressed and disappointed about this. And he cries out to God. And God answers him and says, "I've got this in hand. I'm going to send the Babylonians and they're going to sort out Israel." And Habakkuk is even more dismayed and disappointed. He said, "What? Not them. They're awful. They're even worse than the Israelites." And he has this dialogue, this ongoing dialogue with God about his disappointment about what is happening to Israel. And we face in our personal lives too, don't we? Many disappointments. And sometimes we don't know what's going on. And the question for us is, how do we respond to that? And when we look at it in our personal lives, we can see that some people face more disappointments than others. Even though we never know completely what's going on in someone else's life, there still feels that there's an unfairness there. And when we look at the nations like Habakkuk was, we can see that there are difficult and dreadful things going on in our nation. We've been enduring the second lockdown. So many people have lost their businesses. We think about the rise in mental health difficulties, all the troubles that the pandemic has brought to our country, and we're disappointed and we can be discouraged. But when we look at nations around the world, we can see that actually it isn't fair, that some countries face even more difficulties. And so what is our response as Christians when we think about disappointment, whether on a personal level or when we think about our nation and the nations around the world? And this is what Habakkuk says at the end of chapter 3. "Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Saviour. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer, and he enables me to go on the heights." So Habakkuk gives us a solution, doesn't he? And an approach that we can take. We need to rejoice in the Lord, and we need to rest on the Lord to be our strength. And then there's a promise that he will help us to rise up like deer, go high on the mountain and above it all. We will be able to rise above those personal disappointments. And when we think about supporting other people, that's also what we should be doing too, isn't it? Encouraging them to rejoice in the Lord, rejoicing with them, and helping them to rely on the Lord's strength. From the Well, we have partners in Nigeria and Uganda, and they have both been facing difficult issues in recent weeks with big security problems and political unrest, in addition to fighting COVID as well. And nearly every day I get a message from one or other of those partners, and they're telling me, "We're praying for you in the UK with all that you're facing with COVID and your lockdowns." And it's a wonderful thing, isn't it, when we can pray for each other around the world and encourage each other around the world as we face the difficulties and the disappointments and the struggles of this age. And when we think about ourselves too, we can also know that if we trust in God and allow his strength to sustain us, he will come good. He will sort things out in the end.